Welcome to Sovereign Mamas, the podcast sanctuary for visionary women who are building lives, businesses, and legacies in alignment with their feminine power. I'm your host, Julia Jörg, intuitive business coach, mama of two, and systems strategist for solo-led entrepreneurs. Here, we honor both your sacred role as a mama and your wild vision as a changemaker. Expect soul-aligned strategy, raw storytelling, behind the scenes, and powerful conversations that support you in scaling your business without sacrifice. If you're done choosing between success and sovereignty, you're home. Let's begin. Welcome to another episode of the Sovereign Mamas podcast. This is your moment to dive in and soak up the me time. And today it's going to be juicy. It's going to be a conversation that I'm looking forward because it's a combination of the two passions that I have. And with Vanessa here on the show today, I know we're going to have a lot of interesting unpacks of how astrology, human design, and business can go together. Hi, Vanessa. So good to have you on the show. Welcome to this podcast. How are
Thank
you?
you, Julia. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, me too. I'm excited. And it's funny how we connected because yes, you actually reached out to me on Facebook and said that I'm one of the top recommendation today to become friends with on Facebook. We do not know each other from any groups. And I find this beautiful how the universe, and when you are in a frequency of something, then people pop up in your world. And that does mean, because I just made the decision, I'm going to relaunch my podcast. I'm on a mission to interview people. And then your message came literally a few days later, like, oh, and then I look at your profile and I see, oh, all she's doing is like hyping her podcast. And I was like, okay, podcast, of course we have to talk. And here we are.
Yes, yes. I love it. And I love what you said about when the energy is flowing and we're receptive,
Mhm.
things can happen so organically. It's just sometimes we're not paying attention. Sometimes we're moving so fast. So I do make it a point, maybe once or twice a week, I slow down and I kind of let my intuition decide whether it's Facebook, like how you and I connected, or
Mhm.
maybe it's a different platform. I kind of just like, not like overthinking it, like, who is this person? What do they do? It's just like listening to our intuition as women and just letting that guide us. I love that.
I love that so much. Yes. And yeah, thanks for connecting. And now here we are and having a conversation. And what I would love to do before we dive into what you do and maybe how you, oh no, I asked this question first because the combination that you do is really interesting. And I think it's still pretty unique and rare. A lot of people are on that train to have human design in their business, and they implement it to help people understand themselves. And then now they carve out a business, and you do both, like you say, astrology and human design. So first of all, why do you like? What is for you? What was the motivation to actually say it's two different things? While from my understanding, human design incorporates astrology, like it's a combination of many different things, like human design, philosophy, and so on. There you go.
Absolutely. They definitely overlap. But a lot of people, especially if they're not familiar with the depths of human design or they're not familiar with the depths of astrology, they may not understand that they overlap. They may not understand how they can connect. And sometimes we may not understand how, if we use both of them, kind of like a combination, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, then we get a really good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But if you just get bread, you put just the peanut butter on there, it's great, it works. but there's something about that jelly that really adds and gives us a really nice combination. And to me, it also completes the story. And I'll just say this really quickly. When I started with human design, because I actually started with human design first. I know most people start with astrology and then they funnel over to human design because the human design's more new.
Mhm.
Astrology is more ancient. So, and also even in mainstream, everyone knows what month they were born in, and they know based on the month and the day, they know if they're a Libra, they know if they're a Capricorn, they know the basic zodiac stuff. So that makes a little bit of it manageable, a little bit more mainstream. But with human design, I mean, it's so popular now, especially I don't know. I feel like it blew up like in the last 5 or 10 years.
Mhm.
But I started with human design first, and I used it for myself, got some coaching, and then I started to integrate it with my healing business because I was helping people release trauma and release their old identities and decondition. And human design is such a great, as you might know, it's such a great tool for deconditioning, getting rid of
Mhm.
the programs that aren't ours and the things that we just kind of piled up on top to get
Mhm.
that validation or to fit in or to get the job or whatever it is. But when we come back to our blueprint, we're like, oh, okay, I have to learn how to use this skill. But I think once I train myself on how to use this skill, I think I'm going to really like it. I think it's going to be so enjoyable. I think it's going to start to feel natural. So it really does bring us back to like our authentic selves and who we are. So yeah, and I'll just connect that and say, after a while of coaching, using human design as a coaching system for people like coming out of the healing space and kind of like moving forward with their lives and things like that. Um, Astrology just seems like it has so many of the different missing pieces that again human design does a really good job of getting us back into our authentic selves, but there's other parts of astrology that if we just dismiss it or don't integrate it with the human design, we're missing a whole nother part of the story.
Ah, so interesting. Yeah, see, I would have thought it's the other way around. And for me, because astrology was always part of my life, my mom was really into um, getting all the charts and everything. And so I knew quite early that that's a thing beyond the newspaper snippets that you can read about yourself. Um, and I find it really, or still find it really fascinating. And then when human design popped up, I was like mind blown how deep it can get. And you're like, oh, all the things are now making so much sense when it comes to your personality and the choices you make and the energy level and the relationships and everything. And so astrology is the gem on the peanut butter sandwich, I guess. So what's like you meet someone comes into your world and they say, okay, I'm intrigued. And then you sit down and you compare both charts. Or how do you work with people? I'm so
Yeah,
curious.
well, I like to focus on the goal. And so my niche is career and business astrology. So typically, our goal, it could be a couple of different things. I'll say maybe there's three different goals, within career and business astrology. Sometimes there's sole entrepreneurs like you and I, right? Running our own businesses, doing our own thing. We are our brand. And so sometimes we need guidance on like, okay, am I doing the right things for marketing? Like, am I in the right season? Like where do I need to be? Like what cycles are happening? How can I work with these cycles so that I'm not resisting the cycles, so that my entrepreneurship can be easier or less resistance, or I can use the universal support. So
Mhm.
that's a one way of using it, one way of really focusing on the goals. A second way is you don't have to be an entrepreneur to use it for career and business. If you have professional goals and you have some type of output in the world, whether you're working for a corporate company or whether you're working your way up in the ladders in some other capacity, it could be really helpful to understand your work dynamics, like what's going on with your coworkers, like what cycle are you entering, what's going on with the leadership at your company, like where do you need to be, or how can you navigate sticky situations, or what can you be prepared for with the economy or things that are happening at your company. So using it for a career and business lens, it's a whole another level than what most people even know what exists. I didn't know it existed either. Even when I was studying basic astrology, I was studying basic astrology, the foundational astrology, more of like through the psychology lens. Because again, I started my healing business in 2020, and so I wanted to understand the psychology of people. That's what drew me to human design first, like I said, and then I segued into astrology. But then after a while, I got a session from a business astrologer, and it blew my mind. Whoa. I was like, I didn't even know that this is possible. I mean, and astrology is so vast. Like there's astrologers who've been practicing for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're still students. They're still learning. I mean, this is an ancient science. So it's just so fascinating. And I'll just say when I was working with the business astrologer, my whole goal, again, I was studying foundational astrology, and but my goal was to kind of get guidance on my business because I was, again, mostly niched in like healing and helping people recover from trauma, those types of things. And it was kind of feeling like that path was expiring for me, and it was. But I had hired a separate business coach who didn't do astrology, just regular, entrepreneur, business coach, great person who was integrity, but the methods weren't working for me, or it wasn't feeling good. But astrology, or business astrology at the time, explained why those methods were not going to work for me at that time in my business. So it was such an amazing experience. And then that's when I found I found out. I was like, okay, I think this is my angle, because my human design chart was hinting that I need to do something around business, and I needed to help other business owners. I just didn't know what that looked like until I had that business astrology session for myself.
Uh-huh. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And so this power and purpose is the name of your podcast. Is this then also what you help people understand? You then obviously unpack the dynamics between astrology, human design, and your business or your job.
Yeah, well, power and purpose, those are like my themes.
Hmm.
Actually, those do kind of tie into my personality and my chart, by the way.
Okay.
So my sun and my Pluto are kind of close together. Pluto's about power, and the sun is about purpose. So in my astrology chart, like anyone else who knows astrology, they would be able to kind of see that why those are like my two themes in life. But
Hmm.
also because I went through an extensive healing journey myself. I went through a big like self-awareness journey, like awakening to my authentic self, really like empowering myself, calling my power back. So the power part is just a theme that I think I'll have for however it lasts, because it just feels so good to have that as a theme for my listeners, my audience, people like you who we collaborate with. It's just a great reminder, like we are all here to be empowered beings. And I know
Hmm.
sometimes people can get scared of the word power, or they could think it comes from an evil place. But and I know that there's some programs and there's some distortions around power for sure. There's a lot of people who've misused it, or used it in egotistical ways, or to really oppress other people. But in its highest expression, it could really be used for good. It could be used to really kind of lift us all up. And so power and purpose is like, it's a nice theme that I like to remind us all.
Yes, I love it. And empowerment is such a beautiful mission to be on, helping others see their power. And so, yes, I truly think that's a great name and a theme overall. The other question that I have is, so you are currently in Mexico, you're doing the digital nomad lifestyle. Talk a little bit about that. How have you chosen and empowered yourself and said, okay, this is what I'm doing? And yeah, share a little bit.
Okay, cool. I'll answer that. And then I realized I totally forgot to answer a question that you asked earlier. It was like a two-part question. We'll come
Yes.
back to it later. I'm just going to say it so we don't forget. You asked me if I blend the charts, or if I look at one chart over the other, the
Oh,
astrology or
yes,
design.
exactly.
Okay, should I go into that now or
Yeah,
later?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, after identifying someone, if they like, what do they need clarity on? Where do they want to prepare? How do they want to navigate their professional life or their
Mhm.
career? We can literally look at what placements in both charts are going to be important. For example, if someone's not sure what their message is, if they're like, I'm not sure, sometimes sometimes I think about going, doing public speaking. Sometimes I think about writing a book. Sometimes I think about like just doing Instagram lives, but I just don't know what to talk about. I just have the urge to start talking and start communicating. So I'm like, okay, great. Yes, I'm glad you have that inspiration. I'm glad you have that fire inside. Let's look at your conscious Mercury and your human design chart, because that's going to give us either a specific vibration, like an energy, or it might even give us a specific topic. It might be abstract or it might be direct, depending on what kind of gate it is. So we'll get that. And then I'll look at their Mercury placement in their astrology chart to see one, where, like what sign is their Mercury in? Is it in Aquarius? Is their Mercury in Leo? Like, where is it at? And then also to see what house it's in, because the house is going to tell us like what types of like what like where like what area of life can they really talk about. So if someone has their Mercury in the seventh house, which is like relationships, business partnerships, marriage, they might have a powerful message around marriage, or they might have a powerful message to share around collaborating or business partnerships or how to navigate that. And then also pairing it with the sign. So when I present this information, I kind of like give the knowledge, the textbook knowledge, if you will, a little bit of intuition, discernment based on who I'm talking to. And then people will catch like, oh, that might be it. Three,
Mm.
they will start tracking things like, oh my God, like I had that inspiration once, right? And so it's kind of like reawakening. Is my internet still good?
Yeah, you just
Okay, I
first
had a
was
little
second.
notice. Okay. Yeah, so once I mention things, it will reawaken like their desires that they once had.
Mhm.
Or if they haven't thought about it yet, it plants the seed. So that's kind of how we can use it to really, help someone with their brand. Like what's their message? What's their mission in
Mm.
life? So it's kind of looking at both depending on which chart is appropriate. Like for that example, it would be appropriate to look at both the Mercury placement in the human design and the Mercury placement in the astrology.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
powerful and so
Yes.
helpful. Yeah, cool. Cool.
Yeah. And then the
Mhm.
Tulum and traveling. Um, so I love Tulum, by the way, and you've been here, right?
I've been here, yeah, yeah, there.
There, yeah. And did you just come to visit or did you stay a while?
Well, my digital nomad phase was when I left 2011, and then I was just on an 5 year around the world trip doing the digital nomad thing. And some of the stops were in Latin America. And the reason, oh yeah, so there was Canada for a few months, and then it became winter time in Canada, and I was like, oh, I have to I have to get out of here. And the closest and more obvious destination was Mexico from there. And then I loved the climate and everything, so I spent some intensive times on the peninsula and did like 3 months of roaming around there. And Tulum was one of the stops. I was just like, I think 2 or 3 days before I then hit down and hit the roads and went all the way slow traveling to until I finally got to the Galapagos Islands, which was one of my
Ah,
highlights I wanted to do. But yeah, no, I do remember, and it must be so fascinating for you being there, like feeling the energy of the ancient, like the ancestors and everything. Is that a reason why you're there, or it's just like me going around?
yeah, well, I came here on intuitive hit. Again, I'm such an intuitive person. It's a strong gate in my human design. I have 4 planets in Scorpio in my astrology chart, so everything is like super intuitive, right? Just connecting with the universe. And I came to Tulum with only like 2 days notice. My girlfriend and I were like, let's go to Tulum. We were looking at like Airbnbs and we were just like, oh wow, this is like way more doable than like we thought. And I had an apartment in LA at the time and I was like, like it just seems so much more manageable. It's just and then you're closer to the beach with no traffic. I mean, LA has a beach, but you're It's a big
Mm.
city. It could take you still an hour to get to the beach. So it was kind of just like, yeah, last minute decision. Girlfriend and I came out together and then very intuitive. I really didn't have any logical reason. The only thing that was kind of like logical is I had built my online business. So in the back of my mind, I did have the intention to give myself more freedom,
Mhm.
because prior to that, I was doing real estate. So when I was in real estate, I was literally locked in for the most part. I was locked in a city, and or if I traveled, I had to come back because I had clients and I had to be boots on the ground. So with my healing business, it was in merging it into astrology eventually. It was just so nice to have that freedom. So I got the call, and when I talk to people here in Tulum, it's so common for people to be like, I got pulled in here.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I got the call, and or they'll say, I went for like 2 weeks and I ended up staying for 6 months. And for me, it's like I knew I was going to be here for at least a month. And then I ended up staying for like 8 months. And then I left and then I came back. And now I kind of go back and forth. And I still give myself flexibility to follow my intuition to go other places. But
Mhm.
because I'm familiar with Tulum, I kind of come back just to like reset. And it doesn't feel like it's an in between space. It feels more of like a, I mean, I'm
Okay.
not really stationed here, but it feels more of just like a very familiar frequency. But I
Mm.
do love the ancient culture here. Tulum is a little touristy. Some people are surprised about that when they get here. So some people are like, there is no culture there. And I don't think that's true. There is culture. Like the Mayan culture is still here. You just need to like be intentional about immersing yourself in that culture, going to the rooms, going to the right cenotes, not the party cenotes that are
Mm.
playing like house music. Go to the more authentic cenotes where it's a full experience. So I love it. And the best thing, and you might know this too, or you might feel this way because you did digital nomad life or just full-time travel. Connecting with community is so important. And
Mhm.
people who are traveling, like the season that they're in their life, they're so open-minded. They're open to expanding. They're open to conversations. Like they're not so like locked in a
Mhm.
box because that lifestyle requires you to be open and ready and flexible. So it's really cool so far to be here in Tulum.
Yeah, you'll have all kinds of conversations that you don't expect. In the beginning, I was like always like, oh wow, like how people go out, decide for themselves. I'm just gonna experiment. Like it's more the readiness to experiment and be spontaneous with your life. And then that builds a lot of different conversations and gave me, because when I left Germany, I came out of a little bit like you, I was really locked in. I worked for an agency, great job and everything. Um, but there was no room even for me in my head to think that there's something beyond making money. Back then, it wasn't a thing so much. Now it's obvious you can work online and travel the world. That's not a thing. But when I went, I was kind of feeling like I'm doing a stupid thing because everyone who I left behind told me, you're doing a stupid thing. And I just felt it feels good, so I'm doing it. And the more I was out there, people reflected that back, and I said, so I'm not the only crazy person. And if that I think is the one big benefit of traveling, that you do like kind of break with the societal habits and beliefs and everything that you were born and raised with, and then suddenly you get to explore and have those the sky is the limit conversations and see how other people are doing things and understand that we're all humans and it's not dangerous and it's not scary to be out in the world. It's just like, um, yeah, it's just like a very natural way of finding yourself. Like it's definitely a exploring journey, and then also reconnecting with other humans and your purpose. So that was for me a
Yeah.
really, really great way of doing it.
Yeah. 100% agree. And our world is set up for it now. I mean,
Mm.
we have like with all the online systems, we could run online businesses. There's a whole bunch of AI programs that help us get things done efficiently. You know, there's you don't have to do a traditional lease everywhere you go. You can literally just find a place on Airbnb and rent it for the month. You know, you could be so mobile. And I think people are still catching up to how much freedom they actually have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they still might have to make a few lifestyle changes, but it's totally possible. And I follow a lot of digital nomads on Instagram, and I even found some families. And I know your podcast is for moms and motherhood, and I love that. I don't know how people figured out how to do it with like two kids, you
Yeah.
know, the mom, dad, and two kids, but they figured it out, and it looks like they get to, yeah, just create their lifestyle. It's like a life by design and not by default. So I love that.
It's funny that you say that because my very first online course was called Life by Design, and that was because I was called to share how I created my life then after n never returning. Like I left 2011, then I traveled full time solo, met my partner who was who became the dad of my children. We traveled a few more years, and then we had the children on the road, and like I had digital nomad babies all along. They were on many beaches around the world. Um, and so yeah, I created that course helping other to support other families also get into the, hey, you can do this. It's not
Love that.
stopping when you have families or children. And yeah, so let's talk about that because you're not a mom yet. I'm not sure how you feel about motherhood, but we did say we opened this conversation, and I'm especially curious because there's a book coming also for the Sovereign Mamas brand, and I feel, and I have other mompreneurs in my network who do say the same things along the line. If I had known before I was a mom that, and then there's so many things we didn't know. And and I kind of sometimes want to jump back and go back to my past self and cherish the moments when you're alone and having a coffee all to yourself in silence and all these things that we take for granted and don't know that they will change and really rock your world when you have children. Um, that is one thing. And then also sometimes, you have conversations around how people choose not to have children. And I had for the longest until I was turning 31, I said, no children, no children. 32, 33, I was like, well, maybe. And I was pregnant with, 34. But it changed last minute. It was like, it could have ended up that because when you have a great life, and you might say maybe now the same thing, everything is in flow and you do understand the value of having freedom, not only in location independence, but making choices. How do you feel about this? Some people feel all the different kind of things about children, but some people do think children are limiting.
Mm,
Let's start this
mm.
conversation here.
I think that's a societal outdated program. Again, you know, like our parents probably thought that because their world was completely different. Again, they didn't have Zoom, they didn't have Chat GPT, they didn't have Instagram. And also, you know, um people buy differently now. People have different needs. We all have we want different services, different products than we did. So there's so much space for anyone to create a business or work for another company and find the companies that are okay with having a remote worker. And there's so many. There's a job website. I sent it to my sister because she's like, I think I want to come to Mexico, but you know, like how do I do that and work? And so there's a site called, I don't want to promote it, but it was like something about like digital nomad work, something like that. That's not even the exact thing. But anyway, so there was a whole site dedicated for people to actually just find jobs with the ideal salary, and then companies that, you know, that have positions and packages that are created for people who live remotely. So our world is completely different than our parents or the program, like that belief that has been locked in place. It's up
Mm,
to us to actually just change that belief. Things like our reality is different, so we shouldn't think like we did 30 years ago or 20 years ago even. We need to kind of just be completely present and be like, what are my options now? You know,
Mm.
and then like I said, if you want some inspiration, I mean, I know they have you as an example, and they can always talk to you about how you did it with kids and how you traveled. But like I said earlier, I follow people on
Mm.
Instagram, all types
There's
of
so
digital
many.
nomads, not just singles, not just moms. It's like I think one day if I hit that hashtag digital nomad, I just started following all types of accounts. But I see so many different people with different lifestyles, and that will expand your mind. That is part of changing that program that has been, given to us as kind
Mm.
of like almost a way to control us, maybe unintentionally. But as soon as you start to open yourself up to what's possible, you no longer have to believe the old thing because you have proof that there's so many new possibilities.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I can 100% confirm that that happened to me when once I was, because the decision then to become a mom um, did obviously raise some questions of how is this going to work out there? But then when you're surrounded by people already doing it, and when you are already with that openness to just trying things out, and if in case it fails, you can always do it the traditional way everyone is doing it, right? But because I had such proof in um, carving out a career online, and it was kind of a pioneer thing to do back then, and I did not model anyone. I was just like learning by doing and following my intuition and saying, okay, this is what I know do and I'm good at. So let's turn this into an online business and offer the services online. I mean, why not? And when you have some sort of validation that something is working, you can apply and implement that in all different areas of your life. And so with motherhood as well. Do you find that especially moms are more open, because you said in your audience there are mompreneurs as well? Is that something that you see they come to you for advice and your services?
Yes, I have them as clients for sure.
Yeah, I think when we are then in that phase and in that stage of life, and understand how we are basically the leader of the families and role modeling for our children, then tools like human design and astrology is something really, really cool to have at hand.
Yeah, yeah. And this might be a little off topic, but feminine energy is so important right now. And we're coming into the era of like divine feminine energy and nurturing energy. Like the world needs more nurturing motherly energy for the people who are moms and the people who even aren't moms. Like every woman has that natural energy, even if she tries to hide it, even if she's suppressed it, even if she's in her masculine, it's still living within her somewhere. 10 years ago, I used to be that girl that was just like not in touch with my nurturing energy. Like, my family would hand me like one of my baby cousins, and I would hold the baby cousin like
Yeah.
way out here, like to have my arms stretched all the way out. But that was just because I was, still healing. I was still healing a lot of the masculine and feminine wounds within me. But yeah, feminine energy is awakening. It's coming into this empowered state, this sovereign state. I think a lot of times our history is told to us as if women were not empowered. They had a more of a soft life. Maybe they didn't have to provide, maybe they didn't have to work, they didn't have to be CEOs of businesses. But I feel like there's a little bit of distortion there. We'll never really know like what's true, but I feel like we could have both. We can be in
Hmm.
our soft divine feminine energy, we can be in our nurturing energy, and we could also have a business or a brand or a message or a project that we're working on, and maybe we're not working on it 10 hours a day. We can have those systems in place to where it's a little bit more passive and it works with our feminine energy, and we could spend a little bit of time on it and still focus on our family or still focus on nurturing ourselves or our kids.
Yeah, that's a big theme in my brand and in my coaching, when when because I have done the masculine route and definitely was very disconnected. And I feel like I relate to what you say when you are then reconnecting with your feminine energy and really allowing yourself to um, have this as a major part of your being. It's like dropping into your body, back into like I do remember I was in a personal development program years ago, and there was like this exercise that people were requested to do, and you sit in front of like us it was in a Zoom room, was everything was online, and the other person would give you feedback. This was seconds, like you switch on and you come into a new chat room with someone else and they say, this is what what your energy tells me, or your first impression. And a lot of people gave me that feedback that I came across as if I'm in my head, even though I didn't talk. Like it was really yeah, surprising. I was, and then after healing, after really awakening to myself and being on my spiritual journey, but really, the last final bit, when I then also opened up and did connect and started more and more going into that feminine energy and the theme and the topic and what it actually means. And it's not only holding a baby or having a baby and nourishing the baby. In fact, that's just like a teensy a bit of that. I think the woman in itself, like you are that force field that um that brings out then the overflowing cup, but only if you do like fully connect with your powerful feminine energy. And so when clients are with me working on their businesses and they come and say this strategy doesn't work, or this launch or this product or this offer, then most of the time, because it's against that, because it's forcing them to do things in an energetic way, which isn't aligned with their femininity, with their flow, with their season, like you said before. So it's absolutely not off topic. I love that you brought that up, and I love how, and I think a lot of women are still um, needing that permission slip to actually living it fully out, right? And conversations like this do help, because this is
Yeah.
something that a coach can do for you, and that women can, who are doing it and are more connected, can help see others.
Yeah. One thing I find fascinating is I have no idea, probably a low amount. I have no idea how many business coaches there were 20 years ago, or how many
Mm.
women, excuse me. I have no idea how many women business coaches there were 20 years ago. And now I love seeing the synergy. Like there's no way for me or anyone to like really know, how many, like what percentage is out there compared to men. And it's not important. We're not trying to like shut men out or we're not
No.
trying to extinct them from the planet or anything like that, but it's like this, the demand is different, right? There is this need for us to have more nurturing energy when we are working on business and branding and our
Hmm.
souls and those types of things. It's like the old rigid masculine way of control, hard strategy, no intuition in business, no emotion in business. That worked really well for the times, and that has been expiring for a while now. And now we're coming into this new
Mm.
season where it's like, oh no, we need that feminine energy in business for men and women, not just women.
Mhm.
But I just love that it's just changing so much of how we used to do things.
Yes, absolutely. Is there any last wisdom that you would like to share with the sovereign mamas listening to us right now when it comes
Yeah, I
to?
would like to share, I would like to share the moon sign in your astrology chart. If
Mhm.
you want to look at your moon sign, you might already know what your moon sign is. So you can look at there's so many free sites. You can go to, you can Google it and find a free site that will let you look up your chart and then write down the house that your moon sign is in and the sign that it's in. So mine is in Gemini in the 11th house. Yours might be in the 5th house in Libra or anything like that. And why that's important is because our moon sign is our nurturing energy. It's connected to the mother. It'll tell you a lot about your mother if you have someone to help you interpret it. But if you just want to get to know your nurturing energy, or maybe you're a mom and you want to realign with your nurturing energy, or you're becoming a new mom, or you're not a mom yet, and you really want to work on like calling that in and bringing it in, you connect with your moon sign. And again, there's so many free tools. You can get on YouTube, you can get on ChatGPT. For basic stuff, ChatGPT is okay for astrology.
Mhm.
Keep it basic. Don't give it your whole chart because it's not accurate right now. So you definitely want a human to look at your astrology chart if you're going to go deep. But if you just want to like look at your moon sign and get to know your nurturing energy, I think that's a fun way to raise self-awareness and connect with that nurturing energy.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And then if they do want to dive deeper, they can obviously reach out to you and book a session with you. And we have all the links and where to find you in the show notes so that that is no problem. Thank you so much. This was really, really insightful. A little bit of a different conversation today, but I do know, knowing from my personal interest from the conversations that I have, that it's, it's one of the passions that a lot of, especially moms, connect with. And so I love that you brought this in and on the show today. Thank you for taking the time. And yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you had a lot of good takeaways. You can connect with Vanessa and also let us know what star sign you are and what you took away. We're always open to hearing that. That's a very interesting thing to know as well. Thank you, and until next time.